This video deals with the NFL trade deadline, some things that have happened, some things that maybe could or should happen. And I'll start with something that's not a trade at all, actually. It's just an acquisition. Antonio Brown was signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody on the planet knows who has any interest in football. And like many of us, I have a complicated relationship with Antonio Brown. I first really began to watch him when I was scouting Dan Lefevre, his quarterback at Central Michigan. And I kept noticing this scrawny little receiver who kept fighting for yards after catch, fighting to get open, and just showed a great ability to track the ball, a great ability to make plays that even really weren't even there sometimes, and to adjust to badly thrown balls, which Dan Lefevre gave him plenty of opportunities to showcase. And I had a mid third round grade on him. He went to the team that I grew up rooting for, the Pittsburgh Steelers in the sixth, so I was thrilled. He eventually pushed Mike Wallace out the door, and after that, the rest is history. And if he doesn't want his career to be history, he needs to make this opportunity work. I think it will, probably to the tune of somewhere between 39 and 46 catches for about between 692 to 770 yards receiving, and I think somewhere around 5 touchdowns. I think he's going to really help the guys on the outside, particularly Mike Evans. I think will actually have an easier time of it. I think he'll take some opportunities away from guys like Cameron Brate and Scotty Miller. But either way, it'll be an overall, as long as he does everything that he should do and can do to help the team, it'll help a very potent offense to become very difficult. Now, moving to some other things that happened. Once again, not trades. The Cowboys recently disinvested in a couple of players, including Dontari Poe, who was a former first-round draft pick out of Memphis, who was selected by the Kansas City Chiefs in 2012. A guy who, at 344 pounds, tested through the roof as a defensive tackle in terms of physical testing, but had borderline production, and much of that production came in just a handful of games, while he would disappear for long stretches in lots of other games. And that's been a pattern throughout his NFL career. If a team can, one, establish a strong relationship with him, and there's a bond of trust. Two, light probably several considerable fires under a very considerable rear end. They can get this guy down, and I would have a clause in his contract saying every day that you're 360 pounds or more, you lose money. Also, we will deactivate you if within a certain number of hours prior to game time you're still 360 or above, you're deactivated. I think there's talent there, but you have to really, really motivate him. And then Darryl Worley is just 25 years old, but he looks older sometimes out there because he's a big corner, but he's a stiff corner, and the NFL doesn't love stiff corners. He may need to consider a position change. The Cowboys have let him go, even though they need defensive backs desperately, and that tells you everything you need to know. But in the right situation, the right kind of scheme, one that, and of course, frankly, some of his best work comes close to the line of scrimmage. He might need to consider a position switch to one of those sort of nickel or dime linebacker type roles where he's sort of a hybrid safety type. Moving to actual deals, real actual transactions. B.J. Finney and a 7th round draft pick were enough to acquire the Bengals franchise leader in sacks at 82.5 in Carlos Dunlap. Now, Carlos Dunlap is your classic power rusher. You saw him all throughout his time in college at Florida. You saw that he's just this big, powerful man. And he hasn't lost any of that. I think he could probably play 5 technique in some people's systems. You can move him around, kick him inside. He's still motivated to play. He's lost a little something off his fastball, which is to be expected at his age, but I think he's still going to produce. And then I think a big steal is Everson Griffin, a guy who was your classic sort of terrific pass rusher coming out of USC, has speed, has moves, uses his hands well, is explosive. He's a guy that, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's going to be a guy that, once again, especially if he's used correctly, is going to play, he can play at a Pro Bowl level. And I just think that the Lions got a real deal and a real steal there. Now, moving on to some things that have not happened, but I think can happen. Everyone keeps talking about moving Vincent Fuller and moving him to teams. The Packers' name comes up, and some other teams as well. Some people even think maybe the Saints might be in the market because they're trying to move Michael Thomas. Here's what I will say about that. I would be trying to get Kenny Stills. One, it's going to cost me a lot less to acquire Kenny Stills. Two, he's a very similar player, but a little bigger and a little healthier. And though he's had his own little nagging, mostly soft tissue injury issues in the past, it doesn't compare to what you've seen coming out of a guy like Skills. Kenny Stills is the guy that usually gives you, 14 games a season, as opposed to you can usually chalk Fuller down for about, 9 to 11 games a season. Now, either way, you're getting your classic deep threat, a guy who you're putting out there to stretch, sort of take the top off of defense, and both can do that. So I'll continue to monitor this as more comes in.